Once you've chosen an engine management system, the next decision is how you're going to fit the system to your vehicle. There's several different ways to install an engine management system to your car, starting with a flying lead harness, a terminated harness, a plug and pin set, or if you're lucky enough, a patch harness or a direct plug-in. The flying lead harness is typically terminated at the ECU side, so the ECU connectors are already on the harness. Then, there'll be about 6 to 10 feet of open wiring on the other end of the harness. That open wiring will need to be fed through the firewall and then wired to each sensor and terminated accordingly. Having a wiring diagram for each sensor will make this job much easier. It's important to know that not all the wires in your harness may get used. It's up to you or your installation facility to determine how that harness gets connected. A less time-consuming way to perform an ECU installation is by using a terminated harness that's already pre-configured for a very specific engine. For example, an LS1 harness would be populated at the ECU side as well as at the engine side. The advantage to this method is that it's really simple to plug the harness in and get the engine up and running. The disadvantage is that you lose some of the flexibility if you want to add some extra sensors or remove some from a pre-configured wiring harness. The next installation method is using the plug and pin set. With this method, we cut the factory ECU connectors off the factory wire harness. We replace the factory connectors with your aftermarket ECU connectors. So we would actually crimp your pins onto the factory wiring harness and then put them into your ECU connectors. This method is going to require you to go through every single wire on the factory harness to make sure that the correct wire ends up on the correct location on your aftermarket ECU. The final installation methods are patch harnesses and direct plug-in ECUs. A patch harness is a short harness, maybe around a foot in length, which has the female factory connector on one end and the male aftermarket ECU connector on the other. It's a jumper harness that converts your factory ECU connectors into your aftermarket ECU connectors. A direct plug-in ECU will have the factory ECU connector mounted directly onto the ECU. This is an awesome solution if a plug-in ECU is available for your car and if the factory wiring harness in your car is in good condition. With these installation methods, you can simply unplug the factory ECU from the factory harness, then either install the patch loom and connect your ECU, or replace the factory ECU with your direct plug-in. Again, this is a really simple and time-effective method to get a reliable connection to your engine, with the only downside being the lack of flexibility to add extra sensors where needed. Which harness style you use is up to you. Styles like a plug and pin set or a flying lead harness offer enormous amounts of flexibility, but at the expense of more complexity, more skills, and more knowledge required to perform the installation. For those who don't have access to the skills required, or don't have the time to spend, the installation of a direct plug-in ECU or a patch harness would be the right choice. The only downside is that not every conceivable engine configuration has a direct plug-in ECU available. These are typically only available for engine packages that are extremely popular. If you have an obscure, one-of-a-kind vehicle, it's quite unlikely you'll find an aftermarket plug-in solution to suit.